It's so frustrating trying to create a budget and you don't exactly remember what you pay for. Hi, I'm Elena of Financialdemics, where I give you the tips and tools to manage your money, increase your savings and your income, and decrease your debt. And today we are talking about budget categories. When you are creating your first budget or just trying to update your budget, sometimes it is so frustrating trying to figure out what exactly you pay for. And I always say to go to your bank statement or even your credit card statement and look at that to create the basis for your budget, because you will see exactly what you pay for on a monthly basis on those two items, unless you pay for everything in cash. And I know some people are cash people, and so if you are a cash person, then you will have to track your spending for a month or so to really determine where you actually spend your money. But once you get that basis down, you may be looking for other budget categories to help you manage your money better. And the first thing I want to mention is that it doesn't matter if you have a lot of budget categories or just a little bit of budget categories. What matters is that your budget categories actually work for you. I am a person, I am very detailed. I don't have everything as a line item, but I do have a few things that most people wouldn't have as a line item in their budget. Why? Because I know I spend a good amount of money in that particular category, and so it's better for me to make sure I'm not going overboard by tracking it. Whereas someone else wouldn't have that because they don't buy from those types of places or those types of products. So keep in mind that the categories that work for me are not going to be the same categories that work for you. So I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of budget categories. And look, if you have a budget category that I don't mention, drop it in the comments below, because you may be able to help someone else. And if you're trying to write all of this down, like, don't. I got something for you. There's a link below. You can get this whole list. So don't feel like you gotta rush and write these categories down. I have you. So when you're creating your budget, the first thing that you always want to write down is the income that you are expecting to receive. So there are different types of income categories that you could add to your budget. And I have a list because I can't keep up. So you have your salary, maybe side hustle income, child support, a bonus, part-time job income, investment income, rental income, or any other type of income that you may have that is not in that category. Next, you should be paying yourself first. And so in order to do that, you can have your savings categories. And the different types of savings you could have are your emergency savings, maybe a short-term savings, long-term savings, different sinking funds. You can also have extra debt payment savings, college savings, travel funds, wedding funds, birthday fund, gift fund, health savings accounts contributions. And that might be separate, or there might be something that comes out of your check. It's different for everyone. A flexible spending account contribution, 401k contributions, or IRA contributions. Now for 401ks and the flexible spending accounts, and I already mentioned for the health savings account, those typically come out of your check. But if you are a business owner or just the way that you get paid is different than others, then you may have to allocate for those in your actual budget, because you are getting that money first and then contributing it to where it needs to go. So it's also important to keep a roof over your head. So for your housing expenses, of course, you would have either your rent or your mortgage. You may have a home equity line of credit, which we call a HELOC. You may have homeowners insurance, renters insurance, personal property insurance, home repairs, home maintenance, HOA dues, so homeowners association dues, lawn care, your alarm system, or even for your cleaners that you use to clean your place. You may want to include them in this same category. Then I always believe that If you are a tithe payer and you return tithe, that you want to have tithe as an item. If you do any charitable giving or fundraisers, you want to have a category for that. And then let's talk about utilities. So with your utilities, depending on what you have to cover, everybody's situation is different. You may have water, sewer, electric, gas. You may also have a house phone. If you don't have a house phone, then I would put your cell phone in this category because it's necessary, right? Cable, internet, trash. And then you might have some household items that you also have to cover, like if, you know, the small maintenance piece of that, right? So like your air and water filters, maybe like paper products, printer ink, printer paper, cleaning products. And then of course we have to eat, okay? So we need to cover food, which includes like your groceries, eating out, kids' lunches, your lunch, because I do think sometimes that's where a budget leak happens, is because you don't track what you're spending on your actual lunch, baby formula or baby food, and even eating out at restaurants like for dinner for the family or things like that. And that includes brunch, because you know I'm a brunch girl. I like a good brunch. So you have to include that in your budget. So you also have to get back and forth to wherever you're going. And no matter where you live, you will have to pay for some type of transportation. I've made it very clear that I live in the New York City 5 boroughs. And so if you don't have a car, then you may have to pay for an MTA card or a Long Island Railroad card, just depending on where you live. So that might be part of it. But if you're in an area that is not huge on public transportation, you know, you have to pay for your own vehicle, right? So you may have to pay for, of course, your own car note, which could be in the debt category. You put it where you feel necessary. But then you have auto gas, right? You have your auto repairs, trying to keep up with that, and maintenance. And repairs and maintenance are different. Maintenance are the things you need to do to keep your car running, like oil changes and brakes and tires and things like that. Repairs are like transmission, engine, struts, things like that. Parking, you have property taxes on your vehicle, registration and inspection. You could include driver's license renewal fees. I don't typically include those items in my budget. I probably should, but I have a little like miscellaneous sinking fund that kind of catches all that stuff. Auto insurance, or if you have a motorcycle insurance. And then if you are a person who doesn't necessarily take public transportation and you don't have a car, but you take like a Uber or a Lyft, you want to include on average how much you spend on that each month, because those Uber and Lyft charges can take a bite out of your budget. For all my pet lovers, yes, they are so cute, but we know they cost money. Okay, so you want to include the items that you buy for your pet. So whether or not your pet has pet insurance, their food and treats, of course, any supplies that you have to buy for your pets, any medical fees, you might want to set medical fees aside if it's something that may not be covered by the insurance. And then even pet toys, because I know pet toys can be an easy pickup in the store, and so maybe you want to include that in your budget for your pet. So medical and insurance. For some of these particular costs, if you are employed and your employer covers it, then it will be deducted from your paycheck, so you don't have to have it separate in your budget. For certain people whose employer doesn't provide insurance, or it's cheaper for them to go through the Affordable Health Care Act, or they are business owners, these are line items that they may have in their budget. You have your health insurance, of course, life insurance. Maybe you have long-term care insurance. Medical co-pays is a big one. Dental insurance, dental copay, prescription copay, optometrist copay. I hit all the sections clearly. Disability insurance, medical devices, and then personal property insurance is a big one that a lot of people don't think about. But we do know that you can insure like your jewelry and computers and things like that, because under your homeowner's insurance it is included, but there may be some limitations, and having personal property insurance will make sure that those items, especially the more expensive ones, are covered effectively, especially if you have like really expensive, like, you know, jewelry, especially like with your wedding rings and things like that typically, you know, is a lot in price. You can get that insured. And then definitely the electronics like computers and things like that. So we're finally at debt, because I know y'all didn't think we was gonna forget debt. So as I mentioned, you can either have your car payment in the debt repayment section, or you can have it in the transportation area. It just depends on what floats your boat. But then also, you know, your student loan payments, your credit card payments, your 401k loan if you have one, any personal loans, any federal and state taxes owed, and of course any money that you owe to your friends and family. And then you may want to include some of the things that are lifestyle expenses that you don't necessarily need but you like, so you pay for them, such as your cable or your Netflix and Hulu, and there's so many now, like HBO Max and Discovery Plus, and I can't keep up, right? So all of that stuff, right? All the streaming services, maybe your Amazon Prime, maybe your gym membership, your Audible, maybe your Scribe membership. If you have Sirius XM, then that's something you want on there. You want to include your fund money, because you know how important that is, right? Clothing. If you have like a clothing line in your budget for clothing and shoes and stuff, you want to include that. All of your personal care, like your hair and your nails and things like that, you want to have a line for that. And then, of course, if you pay for laundry to get done, and don't look funny about it, because it's one of the best things that has ever been created, then you want to include that in there. And also like dry cleaning. Okay. And then lastly, because they deserve a line, because they cost a lot, kids. You want to include the kids and what you pay for the kids. It just makes life a little bit easier. So the major thing, if you have small kids, is daycare and after school, right? Because those can be, you know, payments that are the next largest after, you know, your rent or maybe your student loans. Like they're high costs, right? And then if you have to pay for private school, that's something you want to include. If you have school transportation fees, club dues, extracurricular activities or sports activity fees, you know, if your kid is in AAU, you know, we know about that, right? Field trip fees, college tuition, if you're helping your kid pay for college or you're putting money aside for college, right? School textbooks, if you have to pay for that, school supplies, kids allowances, standardized testing fees. So if your kid is taking the SAT or the ACT, school uniforms and clothing. That's a big category. School uniforms makes it a lot easier. It's a lot cheaper that way, but either way, you got to include their clothing. And then, of course, if you actually pay child support, then that's a line where I would put under the kids that you pay child support and how much that is, so you can budget appropriately. So those are all the budget categories that you can pull from. You don't have to pull the individual categories if you don't want. You can kind of just use that header, like when I said kids, and then group everything that applies to that under the kids line in your budget. But again, do what works for you. Again, if you want to get this list, because I hope you wasn't scribbling it down, then click the link below so that you can get this budget categories list, so it can help you better create your budget. And keep in mind, when you're creating a budget, it is not going to be perfect the first time you do it. It takes a while to get a budget the way you want it to, at least 2 to 3 months minimum. And I would even tell you, anytime I change my budget, which I update my budget monthly as far as numbers go and things like that, but as far as adding new categories, it always takes me like 1 or 2 times to really get it right. So don't feel like it has to be perfect. If it's not perfect, it's not working. No, you're going to forget items. You're going to realize you need to add items. You're going to realize you need to take items away. So again, if you have a budget category that I missed, be sure to let us know below, because first of all, I can add it to my budget spreadsheet and you'll be helping somebody else with figuring out their budget categories. And if you are trying to figure out a way to actually create a budget, then check out one of these videos here, and I'll see you next time.